My name was Jo Marie Hollins,
When were you born?
January 30th, 1943.
How many siblings did you have and what were they like?
When I was born, I had 5 siblings, 2 brothers and 3 sisters.
Wait. Yeah.
Okay, my oldest sister was named Benny Nadine Curtis, and after her was Ira Earl Hooks. Her name was Nadine Hooks too, I forgot. And then uh, Pansy Hooks, and then Jesse Hooks, and then Lewis Hooks, and then myself, Jo Marie Hollins. And then Betty came along. Her name was Betty Jean Hollins.
So
So,
your older siblings had the same father, and then you and Betty had the same father.
yeah. And they didn't want me with them. They go trick or treating, and my mother say, "Take her with you." They say they didn't want to take me. When we get outside, they say, "You gonna go? The ghost gonna get you while you." I'd run back to the house.
Who was your favorite?
Who's my favorite? Nadine.
Why?
Nadine took me everywhere. She come get me. And mostly everybody. Joanne would take me to the movies. And there was only one theater downtown that black people could go to. And we go to the movie and they tell me, put your feet up in the seat because there's rats in here. And I'm like... And then when I started school and I started taking music at 6 years old. My mother took me down there and I had to go. I walked down there by myself. And I went to Catholic school for 3 years. And then we moved to East Dallas. So I would ride the bus and the streetcar by myself at 6 or 7 years old. And some days I'd catch the streetcar and go to school, and some days I'd catch the bus. And I was still scared of the teachers, though, because our principal was a mean lady. If you didn't do good or didn't act up in school, they put you out. So I remember we had to learn the whole catechism. Had to remember it. And one of my older sister, Piker's mother, she used to tell me all the time, "Do you remember when you started school, you could read your book and didn't have to open it?" Yeah, I just memorized it. And then I started public school. And I went to Fannis Chase Harris. That was over that school that was at the Fair Park, where Crystal used to work. And the best thing was when Colored Day came to go to the fair. We go to the fair every year. And then they'd always have a parade, and I used to see the kids marching. And I say, I want to do that. When I go to high school, I want to be in the band, and I want to be what you call
The
it?
flag girl.
Yeah, yeah. And I got in the band, and when I graduated high school, the band director, we had to do a little play. And he told me, I didn't know your legs looked like that. You could have been a band majorette. And I wanted to go to college, but I didn't go. I graduated in the National Honor Society, but my mother didn't have any money. She never sent us to college. And then when I I was in the band, and this was a bad time because we had to start practicing in the summertime. So the band director called and said we were going to have to buy some new band outfits because those were old. And so when I told my mother, she said she wasn't buying no band outfit. And I'm like, I told him, I said, I can't be in the band because my mother said she's not going to buy the band outfit. So he said, well, give me your number. I'll call you. So he called her, and she got to the phone, and she kept going, and she wouldn't talk to him. So then my aunt called and wanted me to come to San Francisco to babysit her daughter's kids while she worked. And my mother told me I didn't have to go if I didn't want to. And so I got so embarrassed, I didn't want to go to school because I knew I couldn't be in the band and I wanted to be in the band. So I told her, tell her I'll go. So I stayed in San Francisco for 6 months. That was a great experience, though, because I found out segregation wasn't everywhere. Blacks and white and all kind of kids went to school together. And so it was fun, but San Francisco had a great school. You didn't have to buy anything.
Continue.
So I took art. I had signed up for all the classes, and the principal told me, he say, you need one more class. He say your handwriting is so good, you ought to take up art. So I took art, and I was a little Texan girl. This girl told me one day, say, oh, you from Texas. So I said, what's your name? That's where I was talking. And then after, I was there about 6 months, and my mother called, and she asked, was I there? And I said, this is Joe. She said, I didn't know that was you. So when you start talking like that, I was so proper. Oh, and the girl that teased me about talking in Texas, she said, I asked her, I said, do you have any sour balls? And she said, oh, listen at you. Now you're talking like California. You want some sour balls. So, then I wanted to go back home. So after some else, she called me and asked me that I want to come home. And I said, yes. So I said, but I can't come home till February until the session ends. So I came back home. And I still wished I had stayed up there. I don't know. My mother just, she was good to us when we were little, the girls. But when we got bigger, it's like, I don't know. And so she wasn't behind everything. So I even did the little drawings where they say if you can draw, you could go to school. And I did it, sent it in. The guy came to the house. He said He said, you're a good artist. Cost $300. She said she didn't have $300. So she was a mother that didn't think her kids could do anything.
Describe how it was living through racism and discrimination.
Okay. When I was going to school, I had to ride the city bus, and I rode the streetcar that right across from where Townview sits now. And we used to walk down and catch the streetcar and go to other downtown and other parts of town. But back then, they when you got on the streetcar or the bus, they had what they call colored and white. That if you were colored, you took the thing and stuck it in the wall, and you could sit there. But the more white folks get on the bus or the streetcar, they could take it down and put white up there, and you had to move. We had to move back until we finally, if you didn't get off before then, all the black people would be standing up. Okay, the bus was the same way. You had to stand up. If white people came, didn't have nowhere to sit, they take that sign that said white, put it up there, you had to get up. But Dallas wasn't as bad as other towns because where we live what they call the bottom. That's down that hill in the back of Townview. We used to live. That was called the bottom. And then that was before I knew. When I turned 5 years old, by the time I turned 5 years old, we were living over what they call the Heights. That's the area back behind Roosevelt. And nothing but black people, nothing but black people. But all the other places around us was white, except for a few things by N.W. Harley's school. It was black people living over there. And like we go downtown, H.L. Green, some stores black people couldn't go in, like Neiman Marcus and the big stores. Now, it was a store called Tyson's and Sanger Harris, which they turned into different names like they have now. We could go in there, but we couldn't. We had to go down to the basement. And when we went in H.L. Green, we had to go down in the basement. And we could buy anything in there, but we couldn't go upstairs. And then they had colored and white restrooms and water. You had to drink from the fountain that said colored and go to the restroom that said colored. And it wasn't, to me, it wasn't bad. We didn't have people trying to kill up a lot of people in Dallas. And it was okay to me. And then by me going to Catholic school with nothing but white teachers, it didn't bother me. And like back then, black people had to say yes ma'am and no ma'am. And when I went to Catholic school, we only said yes and no. And then when I went to school in California, we only said yes and no. When I come back home, one of my homemaking teacher asked me about California. And she asked me something, and I said yes. And one of my friends, old friends I had, she said, "What you mean by yes? You're supposed to say yes, ma'am." And the teacher told her, no, she can say that. She said it's okay for her to say that because she didn't say it in a bad way. So I guess I never had to do that. And my my sister and brother, one of my older sisters, she used to tell me all the time, because we didn't have the same dad, and she said she was mad because they had to go pull cotton and I didn't have to go because my daddy had money. And I'm like, I wasn't pull no cotton no way. I wasn't pulling no worms. But it really wasn't. And then it really wasn't like, people look at you or spit on you or anything. You just knew when I got on the streetcar, like, did I ever tell you about Nadine? Nadine was half white. And she lived with my aunt. She didn't live with us. Because when she would come to visit us, the kids would fight her because they said she was white. She didn't belong over there. And she would take me everywhere. We got on the bus one day. She sat right down behind the bus driver. And I kept going. And she said, "Where are you going?" She said, "Come and sit down." I say, "No, I can't sit up there." And she said, "You better sit down." I say, "But we can't." She said, "I said sit down." I start crying. "We're not supposed to be sitting up here." And she told me I better be quiet. So then one time she took me in the drugstore and she was looking at magazines and said they thought she was white. And so the guy came, when he came over, I know what he was going to say. So I just got real close to her. And my sister turned around and told him, "She's with me." And he just turned around and walked out. So it wasn't a lot of things going on, but we had our plays. Everybody knew they plays. So it was never anything that actually went bad.
Yeah.
I think it's getting worse now, but it wasn't worse then because there wasn't that many black people there. Dallas didn't have all this that it has now. A lot of places didn't even have any houses. It was just land. And we used to go shopping up on Jefferson. And nobody ever said anything. We used to go to parks. We had parks to go to. So that's the story of of integration, racism, which wasn't very, to me, maybe by being a child I didn't know, but to me, like my aunt, she lived in with the people she worked for, and they treated us real good. They never they never said anything ugly to us. So I don't know. It's all in how you do it.
What was the election of 1980 like, and how did it affect you?
Okay, okay. I normally voted for Democrats, but I'm not Democrat, and I'm not a Republican, and I'm not a what's that other name? Independent. I vote for who I think. After listening to them talk, and I vote for who I think would be a good president, and I voted for Ronald Reagan in 1965. I went to the school that afternoon across the street from where I live to vote. And I finally got up. It was a lot of people voting. I finally got up to vote, and before I could get out the building, they announced on the on the microphone that Ronald Reagan was the president. Other people hadn't even voted. That's what happens. You have to go vote early if you want your president to win. And I'm like, it happened that way with all the presidents. And what about George Bush? I voted for George. I didn't vote for George Bush the first year, but I voted for George Bush the second year. I went to the polls, and I was going to vote for John Kerry, whoever was running against him. And the closer I got to the booth, I kept saying, I'm going to vote for him. When I got to the booth, it's just like a word came to me, spoke to me, like God say, vote for George Bush Jr. so he can finish what he started. So I voted for George Bush. I think he was a good president. He, like all presidents, there's not much they can do when the other people won't let them. So that's the way I felt about the Reagan presidential. He 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 was a good president, and I think we had more money then than any time. I know my money went up some. Okay.